Okay, as promised, a little video about hempstone. And for those who don't know what hempstone is, it's a material I make my guitar bodies out of it. So the back here, that's hempstone, and this is like the typical hempstone surface. And you basically start out with something like this, and it's quite a rough surface, and then you can either sand it off and make it like a smooth surface, or you can just brush it. Later I'm gonna show you how exactly I'm brushing the hempstone, and you will see how hard it is. It's like super hard. It's not called hempstone for a reason, for no reasons. And like a little example of hempstone, that's like a little bit of fiber material formed to make like a ball, and yeah, it's super hard, as I said before. And yeah, so first when you make hempstone, you start out with something like that, and it's a paper made out of hemp fibres, and then you gotta mix it with water and separate the fibers, like make them smaller and smaller, like they kind of even see, but when you roll them, they get like super small, and the surface gets super huge. And when you then mix it with water and spray it on, and the water evaporates, and the hemp fibers they cluster up, and they create, or the theory is that they create hydrogen bonds between the fibers, and that kind of pulls them together, and yeah, and you mix it with like the hempstone pulp that you spray on is like 90% water and only 10% hempstone. And it needs to be like this wet, so you can spray it on actually. And then you have to you spray it on, like here I have that's like a mold I've used before, and consists of two parts, like the upper part, and it's like a positive mold, and then you have like this this bottom half that you gotta have, and then you spray the hempstone, like the pulp, on this mold, and then it dries, and you can get it off, and it dries and shrinks, and then you cut it like here, and you take this off. And that's like the upper part, and then that's like the counterpart to this, and this kind of gets thrown away, but I use it to make some experiments on the finish, and how it looks when I finish it, and when I sand it, and when I brush it. And yeah, then you got like this mold, and as you see, it's got like a beige color on the inside. And the reason why it's got like two layers. So first you spray on the first layer, and then you let it dry, and after a couple of hours, when it's dry enough, you spray on the second coat. And you have to imagine that you spray on to get this thickness. It's like 4 to 5 millimeters, you gotta spray on about 4 to 5 centimeters of material. So it's like quite a bit of material, and you have to first put on one layer and then let it dry and kind of shrink a little bit and get more solid before you spray on the next one, so it doesn't fall off. And yeah, and then you put it in a drying chamber, and it dries over like 3 days, and then you cut it out here, and you take the body out. So yeah, that's basically how you do it. And I'm visiting my colleague from the company Ram, and he is like the expert on hempstone. He's basically the only one who's been working with the material for like a decade now or something. And yeah, he makes Didgeridoos and Djembe, but mainly Didgeridoos, and this is like some offcut of the Didgeridoo. And yeah, it's very hard, and as you have shown, yeah, that's like the just some leftovers clumped together, and yeah, and it gets like harder when it's a ball like this, because it can shrink freely. There's nothing in the way to make it stop shrinking. So these rotational shapes are also quite good for the material, because it can shrink quite freely, and this gets like the hardest as it gets. And yeah, you can make all sorts of things with it, and I made like some experiments to show you what else you can do. So this is like a coat hanger, and this is like 2 bamboo sticks, and I joined them together with hempstone. So I took the pulp and took some with me, and put it like on there, and yeah, let it dry. And I made like a little bit of like a little bridge here, so it gives it much more stiffness. And yeah, it's quite strong. And then one way to finish it is to put some oil on it, because it's natural fibers. It absorbs the oil, and the oil hardens, and yeah, gets like really nice thick. Yeah, nice and quite robust surface, and you could imagine to make like some chairs. There's been like one guy from Karlsruhe who made some chairs out of it, and yeah. So maybe I show you something else I did. Like here you can see we made this thing here and put some hempstone to connect these parts, like on the coat hanger there too. And you see it when it shrinks, it can kind of tear, and it's like the big problem. When it starts to tear, the tear kind of works its way through, and then it starts yeah, tearing, and that's like the part here. And yeah, we just put on the hempstone and pulled some tape over it and let it dry. And yeah, that's quite a nice way to use it too. And I'm gonna show you how hard the hempstone is now. So let's make a little experiment and see how it reacts to a belt sander. Like super hard, and that's quite hot. So here you can see was like a lot of different colors, like a lot of black and some yellow and some greens and some reds, and yeah, it's, I don't know how to show you. Wait a second. So this is a piece of ebony, and I'm going to try to scratch it. And as you can see, it didn't scratch anything. Like it's harder than the piece of ebony, so it gets really hard and harder than any wood, and yeah, it's quite heavy, quite dense, and it also got some good tonal properties, I think, and let's show you how I treat the bodies. Alright, so I'm gonna try and brush this this piece here, and yeah, I'm gonna use this angle grinder with this nylon brush on it, and it's quite an impressive way to show you how hard this stuff is. So let's try it out. So let's try to brush this with this quite rough tool. Okay. So you might see it actually hasn't done much. It took off like a little bit of the high points, and yeah, you see like the dark lines. It's where it's brushed, and yeah, it gets it's quite hard to sand it and to take off material. So a little trick to use some water, because the hempstone is binding with water, and when you put the water back on, it kind of makes the surface a little bit less hard, and you can kind of rip off the fibers. So what you do is you spray it with water and then brush it a little bit. So let me show you. there you see it's like a little bit more this avocado shape, and it also depends on where you work it and how much these grates are, how deep they are, and yeah, that's like one way to kind of finish it. And another way would be, that is a little bit more controllable is like a little nylon brush and just a drill, and I also put some water on it. Yeah, and I found that like the method with the drill and like the slower rotation speed works better than like this super heavy angle grinder, and it kind of pulls out the fibers better. And yeah, that's how you get like this avocado shaped surface. Of course it has to dry, and then you kind of have to polish it and put some oil on it and finish it off, but yeah, that's basically how I do the rough surface. Okay, so like the good thing is that I have these offcuts. I can experiment and try out stuff, and yeah, you can kind of see how it looks like when I kind of make it smooth, and then I tried out to work with some oils and paint on it, and stain the oil with some oil paint, and kind of see here on the inside they are like the material isn't very homogeneous, and there are like some little spots where the fibers kind of soak up more of the paint, and there are like these little pores and stuff, and yeah, it gets quite an interesting texture. It almost looks like stone, and it's quite nice. And I tried out like a lot of ways to brush it and sand it and put some oil in it, and like a lot of different outcomes. Here you see it start like brown, and then I put some red oil on it and some red shellac, and yeah. So basically, I'm trying out a lot of ways to finish it, and a lot of times I have to kind of work back and forth, and yeah, it's not super easy, and there's not like a right way to do it. And okay, now to the complicated stuff about hempstone, and like the main reason why I think it's not being used like at all, and why it's so hard to work with and so difficult, is the fact that it shrinks like 90%. And if you compare it to like some, if you mold have to injection mold maybe some plastic, you have like a shrinkage of like 1 or 2%, or and that's quite a lot there. And yeah, this is like shrinks like 90%. So it caused a lot of problems, and like the biggest problem I had, and one of the reasons why my guitars only have like this one shoulder here, is these concave shapes are very hard to make, because when the material shrinks, it kind of pulls it pulls like this direction and this, and this gets pulled out. So way to show you is like I take this latex and kind of pull it around like this. You see, it's not touching here, and it's basically I just figured it out how to test the mold if it's gonna work, and that's basically how it's gonna end up. And yeah, it's exactly like this. Like it came out here, and yeah, and that makes it quite hard to kind of make this edge here. So when it lays onto your knee, that doesn't slide away. So it's like the biggest problem and concern about hempstone. And yeah, I'm working on a new shape, and it's gonna be much bigger than the old one. And I tried it out, and here it works. So I have to make the shape like go back here and make this this concave shape quite yeah, quite smooth, and not like a hard band, because that's not gonna work. So I decided to make like some kind of a dreadnought shaped new body, and I'm also gonna try out a second body that's maybe a little bit of different shape. And yeah, I hope it works, and I'm gonna film some footage when I do it in a couple of weeks. And yeah, I hope this answers some questions you might have about hempstone. And yeah, see you next time. Bye.